Hey everybody, welcome to the Impact Theory Master Plan video. When we first launched the company, we actually laid out everything that we were going to do because I want to be like Babe Ruth, calling my shot and then knocking it out of the park. And we've recently had some people asking questions about some of the moves that we've been making, and we've got something that we want to talk about that's a big move that we're about to make. And so I want to be the most transparent company ever in terms of outlining the plan that we're about to enact. So as I always tell people, whenever you're building a business, it is going to be hard as hell. And the only way that you're going to have the energy to see all of that through is to have a mission, to know why you're doing what you're doing, to know what you're fighting for. And so here we have a very clear mission statement, and that is to pull people out of the matrix at scale by giving them an empowering mindset. Now, what do I mean by the Matrix? So the movie The Matrix obviously is the defining metaphor of my life and something that I talk about a lot, because in the movie, what you realize is that the world around you is basically just a bunch of lies that have been pulled over your eyes. Now, I think that's the perfect metaphor for real life, because while you're the one that's pulling the lies over your own eyes, it really comes down to how you frame the world, how you see it, how you frame yourself, how you think about you, all of that contextual information, which, by the way, is what I cover in my upcoming book, spring of 2020. My wife says to plug it whenever I get a chance. So there it is. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about in this master plan of ours. But that whole web of things that you think of as you, things that you think of as just being sort of empirical truth, all of it is actually made up of these discrete elements. So your beliefs, your value system, your habits, your routines, your identity, all of that stuff feeds into you, and it creates your frame of reference. And your frame of reference is what I mean when I say to pull people out of the matrix, because they have a fixed mindset. They see the world in a limited way. They don't think that they can do as much as they really could do if they understood just how close to unlimited their potential was. And because they then believe that, they start working towards building the skill set to accomplish whatever it is that they want to accomplish. So that's why this company exists. Now, why did that become the driving obsession in my life? It started with a kid named Rashawn. So back when I was 18 and I was desperately trying to get into film school, and I was told by the admissions committee that to get into film school, I needed to get good grades because I'd gotten a 990 on my SATs, and that was me taking it twice. That was my combined score. I needed to get extra credit. A teacher offered extra credit. I nearly threw my arm out of the socket when they asked for people to volunteer, and they sent me into the inner cities to, they didn't call it this, but basically Big Brother for a kid, and you tutor them. And so of course they give you the worst behaving children on the face of the planet, and the kid that I got was this little kid named Rashawn, and I was supposed to only do it for 8 weeks. And at the 6-week mark, you're supposed to tell him that you're only coming for 2 more weeks. I told him, he went nuclear. This kid went ballistic in a way that I'd never seen before in my life. And as he was melting down and I'm thinking, what the fuck is going on? I said, is this because I said I'm only coming for 2 more weeks? He said, yes. And I said, all right, look, Rashawn, I'll make you a promise. As long as I live in Los Angeles, if you'll do your homework immediately when I get there, because he used to troll me and he would throw fits, run around for an hour, and then beg me to stay so that he could keep me for 2 hours. And because I was a sucker, I used to do it. So I said, if you'll do your homework the second I get here, then as long as I live in Los Angeles, I will tutor you. And that became an 8.5-year relationship. And it showed me just how much people's future are impacted by the zip code that they grow up in. And I could just see like, man, like this kid is really bright, but he is just on a track to going nowhere rapidly. So I used to take him to see movies in Beverly Hills, even though I was dirt poor, because I thought, well, it costs the same to see a movie there as it costs to see in a bad neighborhood. So let me show him that there are beautiful places. Now, the bad news is I don't know how much I really ended up impacting Rashawn. That's a very long story. He ended up in foster care and got moved very far away, and I ended up losing contact with him. But it's always haunted me that I don't think I was able to actually change the course of his life because I was young and stupid, and I had a fixed mindset, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't know how to help him. All I knew how to do was love him. And so I showed him love, and I'm very proud of that. And it's one of, actually still to this day, one of the most important relationships I've ever had in my life in terms of the impact that it had on me. But I don't know that I was very effective. Flash forward 15 years later, I now have a growth mindset. I've really gotten control of my own emotions, my ability to build my skill set. I'm at Quest Nutrition. I have 3,000 employees, and I see Rashawn in about 1,000 of them. Growing up in a bad neighborhood, really fucking hard knock life. And there I am, and I'm meeting these extraordinary people And I started thinking of them as this notion of mining for astronauts. I was interviewing so many people. We were growing so fast. We grew by 57,000% in our first 3 years alone. It was just madness. And I was meeting all these really amazing people, but so many of them had a mindset that was moving them backwards, that even though I thought they were extraordinary, I couldn't convince them of that. So I started thinking, hold on, I'm not fucking okay with this anymore. I'm not gonna do another Rashawn. I'm gonna find a way to communicate to these people that if they change their mindset, they can change the outcome of their life. And what I began to realize was I could only impact about 2% of the world by talking directly to them, telling them how to think and how to act, that they would implement it. And the people that did, it was so fucking rad. And one of them is wandering off right over there this very minute, and watching him turn his life around and go from somebody who had no vision of his future, who only believed what he could see, and who just assumed that his life was going to suck. And I remember the day that he came to me and said, for the first time in my life, I'm actually excited about my future. And I was like, that's why I'm doing this. That moment where you realize I'm in fucking control. I can do anything with my life that I want. Now, giving people that operating system is possible, but it's really fucking hard. And I am obsessed with scale. So for me to do it just for the 2% of people like Carlitos who can make changes in their life, that wasn't enticing enough. It just doesn't match my personality. I wanted to do it at scale. So how do I do it at scale? I started developing my theory of how to impact people, which is exactly why this company is called Impact Theory. Because when you break it down, there are 3 ways that you can influence, or 3 ways that people are influenced to develop their mindset when they're young, and it's happening by accident and they mistake it for truth. The way that those things happen are, number 1, your family, who your parents are. Number 2, the zip code that you grow up in. And number 3, what the culture considers cool. Now, I cannot control who your parents are. I cannot control where you grow up, but I can influence what the culture thinks is cool. Now, I think that there are 2 ways to do that. One is through music. I'm not good at music. I love it. I don't have a deep passion for it. The other is narrative. We are meaning-making machines. Humans at the core of their being, the way that they make sense of the world is through narrative. We tell ourselves a narrative about ourselves. We interpret the world through the lens of narrative. It's why religions are so powerful. They tell these archetypal stories that people can gravitate to. They can understand meaning. They understand their place in the world and how to act. That's what we convey through stories. So as I'm thinking, okay, I can impact 2% of the world by just telling them, but the other 98%, I have to hit them emotionally. So in that is born impact theory. Now, as I started looking, because I think anybody starting a business, especially one that has such a lofty goal as pulling people out of the matrix at scale, you really have to ask, is there a model of this? Is there anybody that's used narrative to really influence culture in a big way? And the answer for me was yes. And the company that had done it most effectively by far is Disney. And so I began to study them and look at their model and figure out, if you were going to disrupt Disney, how would you do it? If you wanted to build the next Disney, what would be the steps that you would take? And so you'll hear us talk a lot about, and in fact, if you've watched interviews with me on other people's channels, I talk about it a lot, that what we're doing at Impact Theory is building the next Disney. While we're doing things very differently, and I think we're a very disruptive studio, you'll get a sense of the scale, you'll get a sense of the consistency that's needed. And what Disney did was they told one kind of story from 1,000 different angles over and over and over, and in doing that, they built a brand that meant something. So if I say to you, I'm gonna go see a Warner Brothers movie or a Paramount movie or a Sony movie, you don't know anything about it. But if I tell you I'm gonna go see a Disney movie, you know something about it because of that brand consistency. Now, many credible scholars credit Disney with helping pull America out of the Great Depression because of the song Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf and the cartoon that it was attached to. Because people started singing that song after seeing the cartoon, and it became embedded, and people began to realize that the Big Bad Wolf was the Great Depression. And by changing their attitude and assigning new meaning and realizing they could rise up against it and realizing they didn't have to be afraid of it, it helped them mentally shift out of it and go into a whole new era. It's really pretty extraordinary that, again, credible historians say, no, that really was this sort of emotional turning point for the country. And it showed me, and not just that, my sister has been to Disneyland 72 times in the past 12 months because the brand makes her feel some kind of way. And you're not gonna get that from Sony or Warner Brothers. You're gonna get that from Disney because they had this very clear vision of the way the world could be. And they paint that in all of their movies. So when you see a Disney movie, you know how you're going to feel at the end of it. And so we here at Impact Theory ask ourselves the question, if Disney could create the most magical place on earth, can we create the most empowering place on earth? So what we're trying to do is be a disruptive studio that uses both the social content that you guys are used to, as well as traditional narrative content. So we're trying to marry those two. So if you see the things that we're doing in creating comics around creating IP, then you'll understand what we're trying to do. Now, the reason that we're starting with comics, which I think people have looked at us and gone, why are you guys creating comics? I don't understand. You're like a motivational guy. You talk about mindset. I'm going to get to why I do that in a minute. But what we're all about is creating these emotional stories that have empowerment at their core to tell that same kind of story over and over and over from 1,000 different angles. So when you pick up something from Impact Theory, whether it's a social content or whether it's a comic book or movie or TV show, you know how you're going to feel, which is quite simply like you're capable of more at the end than you were at the beginning. That's what we're all about. Now, the reason that we're doing comics is it lets us actually create tangible intellectual property. It's also a traditional feeder into film and television. If you look at what dominates the global box office, the number of the top 10 global franchises of all times that are comic book franchises is fucking bananas. So understanding that that's a traditional way, it doesn't have to be superhero. There's a lot of movies that started as comics that you might not even realize started as comic books. So knowing that that's a traditional feeder that Hollywood is used to, because as an incumbent, somebody that nobody knows, like as we come into this, we've got to find a way to plug into their system. Now, the other thing that it lets us do in any creative endeavor, you have to be able to survive a 1 in 20 hit ratio. If you can do that, then you've got the time to figure out what works, because you're never going to knock it out of the park right in the beginning. And I knew that going into it. Now, Lisa and I, we could co-fund a $100 million film, but if it tanks, we're fucked. And so you really have to be careful. You can only do that so many times before you absolutely go out of business. So we knew, because this is creative, because we're not necessarily going to hit it out of the park, that we wanted to start somewhere that was inexpensive so we could survive a lot of failures. And so that's why we're starting in the comic book arena. Now, ultimately, we will also be doing things that go direct to film and television, because that's a really powerful way for us to also build a reputation and make our mark there. So we're not just going to be doing comic books. We're actually in the process right now of partnering with one of the leading Hollywood management companies. And look, many a slip between cup and lip. So if I end up giving you a future update that is that partnership didn't end up happening, fair enough. But we're looking for ways that we can partner with people. Now, that brings us to one of the big updates that we have in our life, this new set that you see behind me, which is we're launching Impact Theory University. We are trying to build the next Disney, and that is going to require massive amounts of capital and ad revenue on the YouTube stuff that we're doing so far, which has been tremendous, and it's allowed us to grow as rapidly as we've grown, is amazing, but it's not going to let us get there fast enough. So we have a couple options before us. We can raise institutional capital, and for those of you that have seen my emoji for institutional capital, which looks like that because they're putting a gun to your head, they're expecting you to sell. I don't want to be on that kind of timeline. So Impact Theory is meant to be Lisa and I's forever company. This is what we want to do for the rest of our lives in terms of pursuing meaning and purpose. Like, this is our jam. This is what we love. This is what we want to do. We're building something here with people that we really fucking believe in. And I'm looking at some of them right now. And if you had my brain in an fMRI, you would see how I feel about it. So we don't want to sell the company, and we don't want to take on the institutional investment. We want to maintain control. So Impact Theory University is going to be a new revenue stream for us. And the other option, by the way, that we have is to do Patreon. And I'm going to be really honest, just in terms of my personality, I don't like Patreon. I think it's rad. And I'm so glad that it's serving some of who I think are just extraordinary minds. And I'm glad that they have that platform. But I want to serve you guys. I don't want to work for you. And I hope that you can forgive me for that, because I love you all. I'm so grateful to have you in this community. It just does not suit my personality to come to the world with my hand out. And that was the first thing that I had to train myself not to do. So what we want to do is create something that is so valuable that people are willing to pay for it. And something that I never thought I would do is sit down and write out the way that I think in formalized courses. But that's what we're doing. And it'll launch with me as the teacher, but over time, we're going to be bringing more and more people into it. It's a subscription service. I'm going to be highly engaged. I'm going to be answering personal questions and being really involved in the community there. We've recorded a lot of it already. I think it is I mean, it's the best content I think that we've ever done. I'm really, really proud of it. It's a side of me that you've only seen on other people's channels, which is probably my truest self. It's a little more aggressive than you might be used to, but it's really who I am. And my team was always telling me, dude, what'd you guys say? You're most fire at the round tables that we do sometimes late at night, when I'm just fucking totally unguarded and I'm hard as hell on these guys because I really believe that they can do something extraordinary. I'm also a little bit more playful and having more fun myself. And that format is the format that allows me to tap into that. So I'm really excited about doing that, and I think that you guys are going to love it. But here's the most important thing that I want you guys to understand. First of all, the content that we're already doing free is always gonna stay free. And then the other thing is, I really believe that what we're doing in Impact Theory University will change people's lives. So if you're anything like me, then you're saying, dickhead, why the fuck are you charging for it then? And my answer is this: I really believe that it's transformative content. I believe anybody that encounters it will be changed by it. If you take it and you don't agree, we will give you your money back, no questions asked. If you need it, you think it will be revolutionary in your life, you're willing to commit to actually seeing it through, but you can't afford it, we will give it to you for free. So I just got the chills. That was like the breakthrough moment. That was the thing that made me go, actually, I am willing to do this. Because all the Jesus. Well, I didn't expect that. For all the Roshans in the world. Whew. For all the Roshans in the world that are starting out behind the 8 ball, I want to make sure that you have access to this content. I really believe in it. I really believe to the core of my being. I've been through a lot of stuff to shape my mind, to put this shit to the test, to see if it really works. I really believe in it, and yeah, so we're gonna make it free. There's nothing more to say for that. If you can't afford it, if you can, please take it, pay for it, help us build the thing that we're trying to build. But if you can't, there's an application, fill it out, let us know your story, and we'll give it to you for free. That's it. I just wanna make sure that everybody has access to this. So you can think of it as, if you can afford it and you want to support what we're doing and you believe in the mission and you don't think that we're just a ship of fools and that we can actually pull this off, it would be amazing if you supported by signing up. It's a monthly recurring coaching program. It'd be incredible. Like I said, over time, it will be other people that we bring into the system as well. Super excited about that. But if you can't afford it, we will make it free. Some people were asking why we killed some of the content that we killed recently, and the truth of the matter is I have finite time. I'm trying to be super ruthless with my schedule. YouTube is our primary focus. It's not our only focus, but it's our primary focus. And right now, when something doesn't perform on YouTube, which has a lot to do with the algorithm, then we just can't keep doing it. So AMAs didn't perform on YouTube. Relationship theory didn't perform on YouTube. So we had to ultimately move away from that stuff. So we are trying to really narrow, that's actually not true. We're introducing a new show on YouTube that's called Conversations with Tom. And I think the algorithm may punish us for that in the short term, but I'm hoping in the long term that it really works. But worst case, we can always start secondary channels. So that's why we killed the content that we ended up killing. The next thing, I'm super excited, although I'm super tense because the timeline is crazy short, is I'm writing a book that's going to be coming out in spring of 2020. I'm contractually obligated to my wife to mention that at every conceivable turn. We're going to be announcing, in fact, by the time this comes out, we will almost certainly have announced the book. And I'm really excited about the idea that I'm trying to pull out of the ether and put together, which is how to build yourself. That the working title that we're announcing it under is The Work. I think both Build Yourself and The Work are not quite the right title, so hopefully we will find something magically delicious before we launch, but that's what we're working under. It's basically how do you build the ultimate mindset by leveraging values, beliefs, identity, habits, routines, the default network, and a whole slew of other just insanely complicated things that I'm trying to tease out and put together in basically a step-by-step plan for you guys to take yourself into full beast mode. So I'm really excited about that, but it is a fucking race to get it done in time. It's gonna give me a chance to reach people in a new way. It also forces me to be more robust in my thinking. So getting beyond sound bites and getting into the real fucking tactical shit. I'm super excited about that. It's gonna expand the audience. It's gonna raise brand awareness. It's gonna elevate the brand. It's gonna do a lot of things for us that I think are gonna be really, really effective in terms of reaching our end goal, which is to pull people out of the matrix by giving them an empowering mindset and doing it at scale. And it's also introducing us to the world of publishing, and we've had people reach out to us to publish their books, people you know. It's fucking crazy. So I'm really excited about that, and hopefully we'll be able to introduce that to you soon. All right, there it is. That is the master plan in a dripping amount of details, a couple surprising tiers, but hopefully now you guys know exactly what this is about, what drives us, why we're doing this, and if I was gonna call it, Batman has a sickness. If I were going to say that I have a sickness, it's that I want to matter. And I hope this content is affecting you guys, and to all the people that have ever come up to me and thanked me for what we're doing and said that the content has changed your life. You will never know how deeply that impacts me. Thank you guys so much. And we appreciate the support. We look forward to continuing to crush it for you for the foreseeable future. I consider the plan I just went through a 70-year plan. I could get in a lot more detail about how we're trying to break into Hollywood, but I think that gets you there, and my team is panicking about how long this is. So all right, thank you guys so much, and until next time, my friends, be legendary. Take care.